Why is an 18-year-old war suddenly back at the center of a Russia-West confrontation? At the United Nations, Russia and a group of Western powers have reignited the fight over the 2008 Georgia war. But this time, the argument isn't just about what happened back then. It is about what Russia is doing in Georgia right now, and whether the post-2008 order is being reshaped again.
We know that our Western colleagues in the Security Council have scheduled immediate stakeout in connection with the events in Tsinval in August 2008. Before they will try to impose on you the Western interpretation of those events, we would like to provide you with an objective assessment. Our Western colleagues persist in requesting discussions of an issue that has nothing to do with the Security Council's mandate and brings no added value to its work.
Two completely different versions, and within minutes, the two sides were offering completely different answers to the same question. Who started the 2008 war? Nebenzia says Georgian forces attacked South Ossetia, bombarded Tskhinval, and attacked Russian peacekeepers. The Western group, meanwhile, calls the events a Russian invasion and says the war marked the beginning of Moscow's more aggressive approach toward its neighbors, one it directly links to Ukraine.
In August 2008, the residents of Tsinval were attacked by the Georgian military of the madman Saakashvili regime. An armed assault against South Ossetia cynically violated an international agreements on the peaceful settlement of the conflict between Georgia and South Ossetia. The sleeping city of Tskhinval came under massive artillery fire, after which units of the Georgian Army's ground forces and special forces of the Georgian Interior Ministry entered the city. At the same time, an attack was launched against the positions of the Russian peacekeepers.
18 years have passed since Russia's aggression and subsequent illegal occupation of Georgia's sovereign territories of Abkhazia and South Ossetia regions. The Russian invasion of Georgia in August 2008 demonstrated the start of Russia's more aggressive stance towards its neighbors. Russia has continued down this path with its unprovoked and unjustified aggression against Ukraine and reckless and dangerous actions against its neighbors.
But the real reason this dispute has returned now is 2026. The Western countries are pointing to a May 9th agreement between Russia and the South Ossetian authorities, describing it as part of a deeper process of integration. They also cite its implementation, the appointment of a Russian citizen as leader, strategically important infrastructure, and what they call illegal elections. In other words, the West is arguing that this isn't simply an argument about history. It is an ongoing process.
Russia has continued down this path with its unprovoked and unjustified aggression against Ukraine and reckless and dangerous actions against its neighbors. We are resolute in our affirmation of Georgia's independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity within its internationally recognized borders. We condemn Russia's brutal invasion and continued illegal military presence in contravention of the UN Charter and exercising of effective control and taking steps towards annexation of the two Georgian regions, including signing of the so-called integration treaties, the latest so-called Treaty on Deepening Allied Cooperation signed on May 9, 2026 between Russia and the de facto authorities of the occupied Tsinval, South Ossetia region.
Moscow rejects that interpretation completely. Nebenzia says Russia's intervention in 2008 was a response to threats against Russian citizens and peacekeepers, and he invokes Article 51 of the UN Charter to defend Russia's actions. He says Moscow's operation was aimed at forcing Georgia to make peace, and says Russia's subsequent recognition of Abkhazia and South Ossetia was consistent with the aspirations of their populations.
Given the continued direct threats to the lives of Russian citizens in South Ossetia, the Russian leadership, acting in accordance with Article 51 of the UN Charter, decided to launch an operation to compel the Georgian side to make peace. This also saved the South Ossetian people from being eliminated. Having these same objectives in mind, our country recognized the independence of Abkhazia and South Ossetia on August 26, 2008. This is fully in line with the aspirations of their people.
The Western response is that Russia's role did not end with the 2008 fighting. The joint statement accuses Moscow of militarization, restrictions on movement, detentions and abductions, discrimination against ethnic Georgians, and damage to Georgian cultural heritage. The Western governments are demanding Russian withdrawal, reversal of recognition of the two regions, and access for international monitors.
We reiterate our condemnation of Russia's continuous provocations, violations of international law, and militarization of two Georgian regions, including restrictions of freedom of movement, unlawful detentions, and abductions of the local population, discrimination against ethnic Georgians, prohibition of education in their language, deliberate damage to Georgian culture heritage, erecting barbed wire fences, and establishing unauthorized flights, railway, and naval connections between Russia and Abkhazia region.
But Moscow sees a much bigger geopolitical battle behind all of this. Nebenzia accuses the EU of interfering in Georgia's domestic politics and warns against attempts to bring Tbilisi into NATO. Russia says the Geneva international discussions are the appropriate mechanism for resolving the conflict, while arguing that taking the issue to the Security Council is political theater rather than a path to a solution.
One such factor is the confrontational course pursued by the Georgian side, which seeks to use the platforms of various international organizations to discredit Russia and isolate Abkhazia and South Ossetia. The United Nations is no exception. This is also evidenced by the fact that every year Georgia introduces a highly politicized General Assembly resolution on internally displaced persons and refugees, which is considered without the participation of representatives of Abkhazia and South Ossetia.
And that brings the confrontation back to its real question. Is Georgia a frozen conflict left over from 2008, or another active front in the wider Russia-West struggle? The West says Russia must withdraw and restore Georgia's territorial integrity. Moscow says the West is exploiting the issue to isolate Russia and that the diplomatic mechanisms already exist. 18 years after the war, the two sides aren't even agreeing on the starting point, let alone the solution.